This painting assignment I'm calling Sandpoil Autumn. And I was able to stay with a good friend of mine on his ranch off the Sandpoil River a number of years ago. It's a lovely slice of Western America. This area is beautiful in the fall, and sandpoil is a Native American term that can be interpreted as gray as far as one can see. And you can see that bit of grayness in the background, but this assignment is full of punchy color, and that's what we're after today. So the first thing I'm doing is a value study. I'm using the photograph as just source material, and I'm changing a few things. I'm changing that tree, I'm changing the size of the buildings, their location, and some colors as well. But here I'm just playing around with a value study. I'm putting this in, obviously speed it up. I'm changing the light as well in the end. I'm having the light coming in from the right. All these changes are fairly minor, but doing this value study is, again, it helps me think about how I can simplify the painting, how I can tie together large shapes, and what problems I might face when I'm actually doing the real painting, which is coming up here in just a second. First, we're going to try and mix this session. So I want you to do your best to try to mix these colors that I've pulled out of the photograph. Each one of these colors is slightly altered from an original color. So for instance, number one, I'd start with the cobalt blue, but it's grayed down ever so slightly. Number two is an ochre. Same thing, it's punchy, but again, it's maybe grayed down a little bit. So start with a rich color and add a little bit of maybe the yellow, add a little bit of red and a tiny touch of the cobalt blue. 3 is a warmer blue. 4 is a nice soft olive. 5 is a rich sienna. And 6 is a darker ochre. And figure out when you would need to use ultramarine to make these colors dark. We're after something a little gray but still rich. So do your best mixing them up, try them on a piece of paper, and see if you find them suitable. And then we can get going on and working on the painting. I'm going to add on to this bit, showing you how I mix these colors that are indicated in that photograph. Remember, we're using 4 colors: cobalt blue, ultramarine, nickel azo yellow, and quinacridone rose. So there's some pure cobalt. I'm mixing this slightly grayed blue, adding a very pale bit of yellow in there to green it a little bit. And that's supposed to be I've got some yellow on my brush. I picked it up in my palette. I'm adding a little bit of rose in there too, so the yellow and the rose will gray each other down a little bit. And I'm adding more cobalt into that mix. And keep adding more and more in there until it seems to be about the right value and the right hue. Even more pure cobalt goes in the mix. That seems about right. So I'm comparing it with pure cobalt there. You can see how bright that pure cobalt is compared to that mix. Kind of hard to see with that glare on it. Color number 2, I'm starting with a good bit of the nickel azo yellow. And adding a weekend red mix, not too strong on the rose. The rose is a very, very punchy color, and you don't need much to change whatever you're working with. So I'm mixing those together to get basically a light yellow-orange and just a very weak mix of cobalt to add back in there. I don't want it green. I want to make sure I don't get it green. So I want to make sure there's enough red in there to keep it from being green. So a light ochre. And that worked out pretty well. To make a color darker, use thicker color. So I'm using a little bit heavier wash of each of those. And there's a darker version of that ochre. You can start with that darker version and add a little water to it as well to lighten it down. So now we're doing that shadow side of the background cliff. So I've got some cobalt blue, putting in a strong bit of the rose, some strong bit of that yellow, and I'm going to use some ultramarine as well. It's a little dirty from my palette, but add some ultramarine. I'm mixing that ultramarine into that cobalt, a little bit of the rose and that yellow. You can see I've got kind of an olive there. I'm using more of that rose to create more of adding a bit more red in there to make it a little bit more tones of purple in there. But I thought that that color worked out pretty well, nice and dark. So it's really just moving around those 3 or 4 colors until you are feeling you've got the right.
If you're captivated by what Mike Kowalski demonstrates in this video, we invite you to dive deeper into his new online course, Making the Most with a 3-Color Palette. Discover how to craft a myriad of hues using just 3 pigments and enhance your painting abilities with Mike's unique techniques. Navigate the intricacies of color mixing, understand the essence of warm and cool tones, and master the art of creating a cohesive, harmonious painting. Curious about achieving that perfect shade of green that complements your entire artwork? This course holds the answers. Joining is a breeze. Simply click on the link at the top right corner or find it in the video description. This will direct you to the overview page, giving you more insights into what you can expect from this course. Can't wait to see you there.